Welcome to the Bobby O Show. My name is Bob O. Potzner, and if you're Jewish, you can tell by looking at the table in front of me what this show is going to be about. I've got two excellent rabbis with me today. We're going to talk about the upcoming Jewish holidays of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. We're also going to talk about something called tzedakah, which I will let Rabbi Rosenberg talk about himself, but it's going to be about upbeat, about Judaism and the upcoming holidays. We will not be getting into politics today, but we will be talking about different things to get you ready for the Jewish holidays that begin on Friday night, September 11th. If you believe in 2 days, it goes the 11th and 12th to the end of sundown. And then Yom Kippur is the night of September 20th to September 21st. I do, however, to start the show, I want to do a dedication to this show, which is my guests are Rabbi Rosenberg and Rabbi John Haddon. But the dedication today is to the Central Synagogue of New York City, which faced a very terrible hate crime just a few days ago. And I just want to read a short thing to understand who we are and why we are dedicating this holiday to that synagogue. A man facing hate crime charges after a frightening disruption during Shabbat, which is Friday night, Saturday services, at a prominent Manhattan synagogue. It unfolded about 6 p.m. as the service was guided and getting ready to start inside Central Synagogue, located on Lexington Avenue near East 55th Street. A live stream of the service captured the panic as a man is seen shouting while a security guard attempts to restrain and remove him from the building. There's a quote from Susan Rome, who was attending the service. Quote, "He was screaming and yelling. I heard a loud pop. We thought it was a gun and people were a little shaken, but the security people were right on it." Another person named Arlen Greenberg said, quote, "When I saw he wasn't armed, I mean he was just ranting and raving and yelling. It looked like a maniac. But I wanted to go undercover. I mean, I thought who the hell knows what he's going to do." It did turn out a little later on that the criminal acted irregularly and struck a 63-year-old woman as was being escorted out by a security guard. Luckily, there were no fatalities and no serious injuries, but there are serious emotional injuries. And we as Jews have faced difficult times for 2,000, 3,000 years, and the rabbi will talk about that a little bit. But Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are a key part of our holidays. So let me have Rabbi John Haddon, Rabbi Rosenberg tell us a little bit about themselves.
Bob, first of all, it's a great honor to be on this program for sure. I am a Rabbi Emeritus of Congregation Shir Shalom in Ridgefield, a congregation I served for 21 years. I am Rabbi Emeritus there. I kind of flunked retirement. In 2008, I took another position in Amenia, New York, where I am currently the rabbi, into my 17th year now. And I'm also an on-call chaplain at hospice in Danbury and also Danbury Hospital. And I'm honored to be on this show, Bob.
I first met the rabbi on a baseball field. I was at a different synagogue, United Jewish Center of Danbury. He was playing for the Richfield Synagogue, and we both hit home runs that day. I was a little faster on the base path because he was sort of celebrating himself. He also, the yarmulke I have is my son's bar mitzvah yarmulke, and the rabbi who oversaw the service was Rabbi Haddon. Rabbi Rosenberg.
I'm Rabbi Ari Rosenberg. Rabbi Aaron Rosenberg is my father, and my wife's name is also Aaron Rosenberg, which is a little confusing, but I'm Rabbi Ari.
I'm Bubble Potzer, so don't be confused.
There we go. So Rabbi Ari Rosenberg, I was ordained at Hebrew Union College, and I've served a variety of congregations in Massachusetts, and New Jersey, and Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut and returned to Connecticut in 2015. That's when I met Rabbi Haddon here. I joined the board of the Association of Religious Communities that year, and I served on the board for 5 years before I was promoted to become the executive director of the Association of Religious Communities.
Just really briefly, what is that organization you refer to?
The Association of Religious Communities has been operational since 1974. We're an interfaith organization. Half our board are clergy and leaders in their religious communities. We have Jewish people and Buddhist people and Muslim people and Christian people on our board. And we have interfaith programs, domestic violence prevention programs, a giant food pantry, and we run all of the homeless shelters in the greater Danbury area.
One of the great things about Danbury, which I think is a great city, is the interfaith activities between the various churches, mosques, synagogues. So I'm glad to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Rabbi, I think at this time you should give us a little bit of a sermon, perhaps, a little short sermon.
I'd be honored.
And I promise not to fall asleep or yawn during your sermon. Might be
And Bob, I promise to be brief. Not easy for a rabbi. So here's what I put together. There's something rather remarkable about the Jewish calendar. Just when we have finally recovered from summer, found the children their school supplies, remembered where we put the car keys, Judaism says stop. The year is beginning again. Not January 1st, not with champagne, but with the shofar, which we're going to hear later on. And the shofar has a very different message from an alarm clock. You know, an alarm clock says, get up, you're late. The shofar says, wake up, you're alive. That's the great message of the High Holy Days. Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, is not simply a celebration of turning a page on the calendar. It's an invitation to look at the year behind us and ask some uncomfortable but ultimately hopeful questions. Who have I become? Who have I hurt? Whom have I helped? What did I do that I'm proud of? And perhaps most important, what can I change? The Jewish tradition does not pretend that human beings are perfect. Quite the opposite. We all make mistakes. We say things we wish we could take back. We lose our tempers. We sometimes fail to call the person we love. We promise ourselves that this year will be different. And then somehow we find ourselves making the same New Year's resolutions we made last year. And the rabbis understood this about us. That is why the High Holy Days give us something precious, the possibility of beginning again. You know, there's a beautiful Jewish idea called teshuvah. It's often translated as repentance, but its real meaning, lashuv in Hebrew, means to return. Return to what? Return to the person you're meant to be. Return to your values. Return to the people you've neglected. Return ultimately to God. And Judaism is quite practical about this. Saying I'm sorry is important, but if I have hurt another person, words alone are not enough. I have to make amends. If I took something, return it. If I caused harm, repair it. If I have broken a relationship, I have to take the first step toward healing it. And that may be one of the hardest rituals of the entire Jewish year. It's not fasting, it's not praying, it's not even listening to Rabbi Haddon, who talks too much. The hardest ritual may simply be picking up the telephone and saying, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Can we talk? That takes courage. Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, brings these ideas into even sharper focus. For 25 hours, not 24, interestingly, Jews traditionally refrain from eating and drinking, set aside ordinary work, and spend much of the day in prayer and reflection. Now, if you've never fasted on Yom Kippur, you might wonder, why would anyone voluntarily go without food? The Jewish answer is because sometimes we need to discover that we are more than our appetites. For one day, we step away from the refrigerator, the television, our computers, the noise of ordinary life, and we ask ourselves, what really matters? What kind of person am I? What kind of person do I want to become? But the High Holy Days are not only about guilt. In fact, Judaism has a wonderfully healthy suspicion of guilt. Guilt can tell us that we did something wrong, but guilt doesn't repair anything. The goal is not to spend the year beating ourselves up. The goal is to become human beings. The goal is to become better human beings. And there's also something wonderfully democratic about the High Holy Days. Whether you are rich or poor, famous or unknown, powerful or powerless, everyone stands before God. The CEO and the custodian, the professor and the student. We are all equal in most important ways. We all need forgiveness. We all need love. And we all have the capacity to change. Later on, we're going to hear about the shofar. And there's extraordinary sound in the sound of the shofar. It's not music in the conventional sense. It's raw, ancient, primal, and perhaps that is precisely why it speaks to us. A little bit about the High Holy Days.
Thank you very much. Now, for those who don't know about the holidays, Rabbi Rosenberg, tell us, Rosh Hashanah is, I mentioned there's a gap between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Can you explain what Rosh Hashanah is and the terms about being inscribed in the Book of Life and then you have it sealed at the Yom Kippur? Talk a bit about the difference between the two holidays and what happens in that spread of time.
Sure. So Rosh Hashanah is a happy, festive beginning of the new year kind of a holiday, and Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement. It's a time to really do some self-introspective reflection on what are the mistakes that I made this year and what can I do to be a better person in the year to come. And there's a tradition that says that our fate is written on Rosh Hashanah, that God determines who will live and who will die in the coming year by that date. But we have this period of time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur before it's sealed. It's written on Rosh Hashanah, it's sealed on Yom Kippur, so we have this opportunity. If we were on the cusp and maybe we weren't totally confident that we had done our very best this last year, we have this period of time, it's a little more than a week, to try to make amends, make those apologies, like you said, try to fix things. And one of the things that you can do is tzedakah, which is the act of giving of yourself to others.
We'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay.
Michelle Phillips, who's been on my show 12 times, most times she's a writer, she's a speaker, and she told me a quote that fits in, I think, to what you guys are talking about, you rabbis are talking about. She said, if I get it right, your soul, S-O-L-E, your soul mission in life is to find your soul, S-O-U-L, mission in life. Your soul, S-O-L-E, mission in life is to find your soul, S-O-U-L, mission in life. To me, that dovetails perfectly with Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur period. Rabbi?
Very profound. And Bob, it's an eternal search. And one of the wonderful things about the High Holy Days is that in Judaism, you are never damned to punishment. You can always make amends. You know, they say that we have two inclinations. Every human being has a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, good inclination, the evil inclination. And the rabbis say that evil inclination's sometimes a little more powerful than the good. But our job as human beings, and especially as Jews, and especially today, is tikkun olam, to repair the world. You know, one of the quotes that I try to live by in my own life, my mother used to tell it to me in English, and then when I became a rabbi, I learned it in Hebrew. B'makom ein anashim hishtadel liyot ish. In a place where no one else is acting like a human being, you strive to be human. And that is to all of our listeners. We have many Christian and Muslim listeners who are listening to us. That's not just for Jews. Every human being, when you find yourself in a place that everyone else is acting nuts, you be the sane one. You do the right thing. That's what, to me, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are all about.
When I was in 4th grade, I think I told you folks this story in our prep show. I always do prep shows, even for my rabbis. And I said to Rabbi Goldblatt, in 4th grade, I said, Rabbi, what makes a good Jew? And he said, Ruvain. Ruvain being Robert in Hebrew. Ruvain, very good question. Okay, Rabbi, what's the answer? He said, well, I can tell you this. A good Jew is not someone who just goes to synagogue on Friday nights and Saturdays. A good Jew is somebody who lives his or her life in the way that the Jewish tradition would want you to live. Rabbi Rosenberg?
Yeah, that reminds me of the passage that's recited on Yom Kippur every year in every synagogue throughout the planet. It's from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 58. And, he was a priest and a prophet, and he was concerned about people who'd show up one day a year on Yom Kippur and display their public atonement, but then maybe not act so properly for the rest of the year. They might exploit their employees or take advantage of people in business. And he was astounded by that hypocrisy, and he wanted people to be faithful and good throughout the year, not just on that one day.
One thing good about Judaism, in my view, is the optimism. We're always optimistic despite what may be going on. And to tie into that, I want to have the first prayer we're going to show today of the apple being dipped in the honey. One of my favorite prayers is the prayer that signifies in Rosh Hashanah having a happy new year and sweetness. And one prayer we take is, you see below me with Rabbi Haddon, apples and honey, which we stick in for a sweet year. And Rabbi, tell us about that. And by the way, I've got a yarmulke on, which lists my son's bar mitzvah date. And the rabbi who officiated over that bar mitzvah was?
Rabbi John Haddon.
Many years ago, just as handsome. Rabbi, go
Oh, I don't know
go
about
ahead.
that, but thank you, Bob. It was an honor and a pleasure then, as it is now.
Thank you.
And the blessing one more time over the apples and the honey. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri ha'etz. Praised art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who blesses all things from trees. Just as these beautiful apples came from a tree, we hope and pray that it will signify sweetness and wholeness for all of our listeners and indeed for the entire world.
I got the apples this morning at the Hickories in Richfield, Connecticut. Let's take a piece of apple, Rabbi. You can stick it in some honey. Happy New Year, everybody.
Shana Tova. Happy New Year.
Rabbi Haddon, that was a beautiful prayer you sang for us. What's the significance of the honey being dipped, the apple being dipped in the honey?
Bob, on this one I cannot be terribly profound, but I think what it is exactly the taste in our lips. When we have the apple and the honey, we're saying, you know what, life is sweet. That in spite of our illnesses, in spite of our problems, in spite of the difficulties of the past year, we are the people of hope. We are the Am HaTikva. You know, our national anthem is called HaTikva,
Hatikva.
the hope. And I think the dipping of the apples in the honey says, you know what, it's a new year. I'm going to do a little bit better. I hope that things go well for me in the coming year. It's a symbol of hope and a symbol of joy.
Rabbi Rosenberg, any comments further?
I couldn't have said it better myself.
None of us could. That's why we have Rabbi Haddon on.
Come on.
That's right.
Come on.
An important part of the holiday, and you mentioned Rabbi Haddon, is the fasting. I remember when I was before my bar mitzvah, and you're supposed to fast. There's a couple of things about fasting which is important, I think. One is that if you're before bar mitzvah age, typically you don't fast. And I used to have a turkey sandwich in the car, and at 12 noon I run out of the synagogue to have my turkey sandwich. Then when I turned 13, I fasted every year since. But there's a very interesting part of the fasting process. I want to mention this first. If you are not well, if you're ill, it's actually more religious to not fast than to fast. Rabbi, talk about that,
Of course.
please.
I had a teacher in rabbinical school who said to me, I don't know if it was an actual quote or not, he said, "You shall live by my laws, not die by my laws." And for all I know, that might be an actual quote. But the idea, of course, is that our personal health always takes precedence over Jewish law. You know, there are 613 commandments just in the 5 books of Moses. I don't think all of us observe 613.
What was number 427, please?
Depends which rabbi
Yeah,
you ask.
who you talk
actually.
to. But the idea of sanctifying life, the idea of taking care of ourselves, and especially, believe me, I'm not attacking Orthodox Jews in any way, but we as Reformed Jews kind of look at the bigger picture. In order for me to function as a rabbi on Yom Kippur, if I need a glass of water or some coffee or a Diet Coke, I'm going to do it because I wouldn't be able to function and lead the congregation unless I can. And I think I'm on pretty solid ground to say that with health issues, our personal well-being has to take precedent over the law. You know, even at my congregation, and I know Ari does the same thing, There are so many prayers in Judaism where it says, sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up. Now I say to my congregation, I finally learned, stand if you're able to. And if you're not able to, just remain sitting. Again, you shall live by my laws, not die by my laws. And that's the way I see Jewish law.
Rabbi Rosenberg, there's a prayer called the Mishiberach, and that's a prayer for healing. And a lot of synagogues in the last 20 years or so that I've observed, maybe I don't remember as a kid having this prayer said, but it's a prayer for health. And many synagogues will have people, congregants come and say, who do you want to pray for good health? You want to talk about the Mishiberach, please?
Yeah, sure. There are Mishiberach prayers that go back 2,000 years, but there was a sort of resurgence. It was sort of brought back into, particularly in the Reform movement, into services after Debbie Friedman put it to a beautiful melody that really resonated with people. And people started coming to synagogue just for that moment because the music touched their hearts and it gave them an opportunity to really think about somebody that they care about. Sometimes we're not surgeons, you know, we can't always do the physical thing that's going to help somebody, but we can pray for them. And studies show that when you pray for people, it really does help in their recovery. And it helps us personally also, because sometimes it's the only thing that we can do. And people really often appreciate that part of the service more than even the recitation of the Torah sometimes, because that's the part that's personalized and they can identify with it and really care about something.
Should I add something, Rabbi?
No, Bob, just to buttress what Ari said so beautifully, but we need community. We human beings need community. It's one thing to pray, dear Lord, I have a terrible illness, help me through this. But it's another thing when you go to a temple, someone puts their arm around you, they're saying the prayer together with you. And Ari is, of course, right. The late Debbie Friedman, may she rest in peace, wrote this incredible, beautiful melody to a text that I don't think too many Jews recited up until Debbie Friedman's beautiful version of that. And it has a certain power just being in community. We need people. And these days, in our world, we need community more than ever before.
It's ironic you both mentioned Debbie Friedman, because whenever I know someone who's not well, I will send them a link to Debbie Friedman's. And I sometimes put it on Facebook if I don't want to mention the person's name. And it's a beautiful rendition of it. I love the fact that she says, please don't sing with me the first verse because I want to do my thing, which I love that. I also send it to people who are not Jewish. In fact, I have a very close friend who's an attorney who's Portuguese. And although I did a show with her and I learned that Portugal has a very strong Jewish connection.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't know that. But anyway, so I sent her the Mishiberach and she called with saying she had tears. And so I don't just use that prayer for Jews, I use it for anyone who is not well, and it's so uplifting, so uplifting.
You know, Bob, talking about the power of music, think about just the little prayer that we all learned. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. I would venture to say that most Jews could not translate that exactly. They would not say, oh, Shema, second person singular. You know, but just hearing the melody says something. It says family. It says community. It says your grandmother, your grandparents. Hearing that prayer, the music, touches our heart more deeply even than the words.
I'm a conservative Jew, and when I go to synagogue, I don't go as often as I should. Usually the textbooks have on one side is the Hebrew and the other side is the English. And except for the prayers that we're all very familiar with, I'll read the English part because I've decided that if I can read Hebrew, but I don't understand Hebrew like I should. Maybe as I retire someday, maybe I should take some Hebrew courses. Again, I took them when I was in 4th, 5th, 6th grade. In fact, I couldn't play basketball during Hebrew school because we had Hebrew school 3 days a week, and I wanted to play basketball. My parents said, you got to go to the synagogue. But those are important factors.
And Bob, I have to believe that my God speaks English or understands English.
Must.
Doesn't have to just be said in Hebrew, of course. There is a certain power in saying the words. You know, I think when we say the Kaddish prayer, Yid Kadal v'Yid Kadash Shemei Rabbah, which happens to be in Aramaic, again, very few Jews could translate it, but just hearing those words, Yid Kadal v'Yid Kadash Shemei Rabbah, I think of my parents. I think of my grandparents who I never met. But when I hear the words, just hearing it touches my heart more deeply than if I were to have a literal translation of what exactly the words mean.
Is that the Mourner's Kaddish you're talking
Mourner's
about?
Kaddish.
Ari, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add that there is a debate in the Talmud about whether prayers have to be in Hebrew, and of course that is our mother tongue. But there are many prayers that are in Aramaic, and they determined that God, can read minds. God speaks every language, and that it's better to pray in a language that you are familiar with than to avoid prayer altogether. Ideally, it would be in Hebrew, but it can be in any language, and God hears all prayers.
We're all people. There's only one God last time I checked. In fact, I will tell you that I have some very close friends in the Lebanese club of Danbury, and I did a couple shows about Lebanon, and it amazed me when I prepped for those shows how similar the Jewish traditions on education and life are similar to the people in Lebanon. And I think the real problem we have in society, not being political for a second, is our leaders don't always reflect the people.
Exactly.
That's part of the thing that we talk about. Another prayer time. We have this challah in front of us. Let's have the prayer perhaps with the challah. Rabbi, we also have today with us some fresh challah, which my favorite baker made for me this morning. Would you please do the prayer over the challah, and I'll cut the bread after you say the prayer.
I would be honored. And I want you to listen to the blessing, Bob, because it's a strange blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, always translated as, excuse me, praised art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Problem is, God doesn't bring bread from the earth. God brings wheat from the earth. We need human beings to be co-partners with God in creating this delicious challah.
And just so you know, my family had a bakery business from 1917 to 1974 in Shelton, Connecticut, and I probably made 2,000 challahs in my life if I made one.
Very Jewish food.
Very Jewish. So let me cut the challah right here. And sometimes people put the challah in the honey as well, don't they?
Sure,
Rabbi?
again, symbolizing the sweetness that we hope for everybody for this coming year.
Let me just cut a little piece right there. And of course, once you cut it, we're very, very careful. We just do like this.
Right.
Let's see. Very good, very delicious. Happy New Year, L'Shana Tova.
Shana Tova to you, Bob. Thank you.
Rabbi, that was another rendition. The challah was sitting in front of us. You can see right to a few snips of it. What's that tradition all about?
Oh boy, this one I'm a little bit stuck on, Bob.
The answer is it's Jeopardy. The answer is?
That's the way we do it, and that's the way we do
It's
it.
tradition.
It's
Tradition.
But why bread? It's a good question why bread became symbolic of the meal more than any other food. But there is something about the prayer which I think is very interesting. When we say, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Praised art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. The problem is God doesn't bring bread from the earth. God brings wheat from the earth. It took some incredible human being to say, you know what? If I take this wheat and I whack it 100 times, and I put a little water in it, and I put it in the oven at 350 degrees, I'm going to get this incredible thing. Let's call it bread, lechem. But that's the miracle of the blessings. So when we say the blessing, what we're really affirming, what a miracle just to be able to eat. What a miracle it is just to be able to swallow. You know, I'm a chaplain at hospice, Bob, and I see the tragedy of people who aren't able to eat, who aren't able to swallow. And I think that Motzi reminds us, don't take anything for granted in life. Every ability that we have is a blessing. That's the way I look at the Motzi.
Rabbi?
And if I could just add to what my dear friend Rabbi Haddon said, like you said, God creates the environment that produces the wheat. people partner with God to create the bread, and some would say that it's a reminder that we're meant to be partners in creation. God created this planet, but we have a responsibility in this world, in our lives. That soul that you were talking about, what is our role to play while we're here on this planet? And I believe, and maybe we all believe, that it's to help other people and to be of service to others.
My family had a bakery business from 1917. My grandfather, who passed away when I was 4 months old, so I never really met him, and to my father to 1974 when they closed the bakery. We sold it to the bank, so he said the joke was from dough to dough. but we were involved in the tradition of the challahs being baked for the holidays, etc. And also my father would always bake for the bar mitzvahs and the Oneg Shabbat, the holidays. Friday night service, we might have some little food, a little nash. And the rabbi would always check his ovens to make sure that his ovens were kosher. I'm not sure what made an oven kosher, but the rabbi would double check. And so we have been involved in that. One thought I had, as I'm sitting here right now, is on Passover, we eat unleavened bread because of the famines and the difficult times that Jews had in those days. So to me, I was thinking, gee whiz, the challah is the positive side of things where you had the wheat leavening. That's the Babio theory. It's not rabbi whatever from who knows when. Ari?
Can I just mention, so my brother spends his summers, like a lot of Jewish people do, in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, and the actor Paul Rudd was doing something at the movie theater the other night, and my brother went backstage and he gave him a challah that my brother had baked, and so there's a picture of my brother and Paul Rudd, with this challah that he gave to him. So.
And the other thing is, we always in my family have one person host the luncheon the first day of Rosh Hashanah, and this year now we have grandkids of 4 years of age and 18 months old. We're going to have the family, and my son's gotten married, and so it's a whole family thing. And on Break the Fast, we typically host the Break the Fast, which is my favorite holiday of the year, the Break the Fast. Go ahead.
One interesting thing about a motzi, and I'm sure Ari has seen it in his career too. You go to a bar mitzvah or a wedding, people have been eating for an hour. Then you go into the main dining room, and the band leader says, "We'll now call upon the grandfather to say the motzi." Even though we've been eating now. So I've been asking myself, what is all that about? And guess what? That's powerful too. Because what that is saying is, folks, stop for a minute. We've had a wonderful hour of eating appetizers, but what we're really here for is the bar mitzvah, is the wedding. And now my saying the blessing over the bread, even though we've been eating for an hour and a half, says, stop, wait a second. This is a sacred occasion, not only a joyous occasion. And I think that's why we do it at that point. It's a joyous occasion, it's a sacred occasion.
Well, that's sort of like why you break the glass at a wedding. Same principle. I won't get into that. I've done several weddings. Both my kids, I did their weddings. The comment you just made, though, Rabbi, is another Babioism coming. Bar mitzvah. I think we in our society put too much emphasis on the bar and not as much emphasis on the mitzvah. Mitzvah being the good deed. That's another Babio. You can quote me. By the way, I only charge $5 a quote.
I want to watch your past programs, Bob.
I was just going to mention before we do our next part of the show that we also traditionally host the Break the Fast. And when people say, what's your favorite holiday? My favorite holiday is Yom Kippur, Break the Fast.
Break the Fast.
And you need to be careful if you're someone who hasn't fasted, and a lot of my people come to the festivities, aren't even Jewish, and they know that at 6:30 p.m., that's my block time, the night of Yom Kippur, it's over, it's sundown somewhere at 6:30 p.m., Babio's rushing to our traditional table, and then everybody else jumps in.
But Bob, look what you're doing. You know, the tradition on Passover, they say you go from ginut l'shevach, from the bondage in Egypt of 400 years to the freedom and the entering the land of Canaan and the New World. Look what we do same deal on Yom Kippur. We've fasted for 24 hours. We've said prayers of atonement. It's enough of that. Let's go to the world of joy. Let's go to the world of optimism. We go from ginut l'shevach, constantly in our life. We are always the Am HaTikva, the people of hope. And I think I'm on fairly solid ground when I say most of the rituals in Judaism, like a good song, end on a happy note, end on an optimistic note. That's what we do when we break the fast.
I'm thinking right now of the movie The Jazz Singer, Neil Diamond.
Of course.
And his great rendition of America at the end, when his father, who was the rabbi, or the cantor rather, who was upset that Neil Diamond became a singer. And then in the end of the show, you see him and Lucy Arnaiz's daughter, I guess Lucy Arnaiz is the daughter, singing, watching him perform. And it's, again, we all try to find in our own way your soul, S-O-U-L, right? Let's go to the wine. I have this wine bottle. Now, everyone knows I don't drink, but I drink a sip twice a year. Passover, I sneak a little bit of wine there. And we have the Manischewitz, and we have it here. Let's have the rabbi's prayer over the wine. Also, Rabbi, of course, as you know, tradition is to have the Kiddush and the prayer over the wine. I'm going to take the Manischewitz, pouring it into the Kiddush cup my father gave to me before he passed away.
Oh my gosh.
Put a little Manischewitz. I don't drink, but the only time I do drink is on Jewish holidays. I'll have a sip, and I have a sip on Passover and Rosh Hashanah. And by the way, the tie I'm wearing, Rabbi, it's a Hanukkah tie. It's the best I could get. I didn't have a Rosh Hashanah tie, so someday you could buy me a Rosh Hashanah tie. But this
With
is
apples and honey.
Here's the prayer over the wine, Rabbi.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Watch it.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'am v'romamanu mikol hashon v'kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ava et yom hazikaron hazeh yom teruah mikrai kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim u'devarcha emet v'kayam la'ad baruch atah Adonai melech al kol haaretz Yisrael v'yom hazikaron baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kimanu v'higianu Lazman hazeh.
Amen.
Amen.
And by the way, this will be a happy new year for me because my son Matthew and his wife Lauren are expecting their first child, my third grandchild, in October 18th of 2026. What year is this going to be?
5787.
I was not there for the first one.
Thank
In
you,
fact,
Bob.
when I got bar mitzvah, which happens around your 13th birthday, in my old synagogue, Beth Israel in Derby, which is now, I think, a Mormon church, and that's an issue we could talk about some other show about, not just synagogues, but synagogues and churches. The congregate memberships are way, way down. I did a show with Pastor Cobb, I think he's called a pastor, I'm not sure if he's a pastor or a reverend, about in his church, the number of people who belong is lower and lower and lower. That's an issue that I may do a show with us. And
Is
some
that
other
Michael Cobb at the
Yes.
Methodist
His
Church?
wife is
He's
Shannon.
also on our board with
Michael
us.
Cobb is-
Shannon
So,
Cobb
yeah.
is his wife. She
Exactly.
runs the Ann's Place.
Ann's Place.
And Michael Cobb's been on 2 of my shows.
Oh,
Everyone's
wonderful,
been
yeah.
on my show except for Taylor Swift. She turned me down twice.
Third time's a charm.
Let's go to Yom Kippur. And I think we're going to have now a prayer from the cantor of Kol Nidre. It's an important holiday. He was from the Center Synagogue. And let's play now the Kol Nidre prayer, and then Rabbi is going to talk about that a little bit after that. Kol Nidre, please, directors.
Kol nidrei v'sarei v'charamei v'konamei. 'V'chinoyei 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 Bekino sei, Ushevut.
Ari, you know that gentleman, don't you?
I do, actually. We were in Jerusalem at the same time. The first year of the rabbinical program brings the rabbinical students and the cantorial students to Jerusalem for the year. And we spent a year together. And he was, Dan Mutler, he was the nicest guy. There were like 60 of us there. And he was the nicest one of all of us. Just really, really a gentleman and a beautiful, beautiful voice. And he's been at Central Synagogue for his entire career, and I pray he's there for a very long time to come.
And I think you sent him an email saying that we were honoring.
I did, and he expressed gratitude that,
Oh, he did?
that we
Okay.
got to include him in our show today.
Thank you very much. Now,
Sure.
Rabbi Haddon?
Bob, I just would like to share the reading that I do at my own temple before Kol Nidre. Friends, as we begin this sacred evening of Yom Kippur, we arrive at the most moving moment of the Jewish year, the chanting of Kol Nidre, which we just heard. These ancient words speak about the vows and promises we have made, intentionally or unintentionally, that we were unable to fulfill. Isn't that interesting? It's a legal dispensation of vows, which I'll talk about in a minute. But Kol Nidre is more than a legal declaration. It invites us to enter Yom Kippur with honesty and humility, acknowledging our imperfections and opening our hearts to the possibility of forgiveness and renewal. As we listen to this haunting and beautiful melody, may we let go of the burdens we carry, make peace with the past, and prepare ourselves for the sacred work of Teshuvah, turning, returning, beginning again. And again, Bob, as I mentioned earlier, no one cares what the words mean. It's in Aramaic. I'm not sure I can translate every word of Kol Nidre. And they say that this prayer took on added significance during the Spanish Inquisition. You know, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand were not the greatest friends of the Jewish people. And in 1492, they gave the Jews three choices: death, expulsion, or conversion. Many of the Jews chose conversion, wanting to stay alive. So the Jews convert to Catholicism, except the old Catholics don't like these new Catholics, these Jews who come in with mercantile skills, communication skills, networking skills, and they actually call them marranos, which is a medieval Spanish word for a pig. That's what the Catholic old guard called the new guard, the Jews who had converted to Catholicism. So for us, that prayer, I don't think we think of the historical context, but look at the power of it. It says, whatever I said last year, which I tried to fulfill, and I haven't been able to fulfill, dear God, give me another chance. Let me try in this year. I'm going to do better this year. That's what Kol Nidre says to me. It says we're not perfect, but we have another chance.
One thing I find very important in Yom Kippur is that, let's suppose I wronged Rabbi Haddon. I didn't have enough lox on the plate for you. I wronged you some way, somehow, okay? I say it because he's been a lot of life cycle events in our house, and we're very good friends.
In your beautiful home.
That's right. And the Millers, who are very close friends of all of us. But if I wronged somebody, unlike other religions where you go to some independent person and say, I did wrong, and you get blessed, whatever, in Judaism, if I wronged you, it's my job to go to you and talk to you and say to you, you know what, I did wrong, whatever, whatever, and I want to apologize to you, which to me is a much, not criticizing any other religion, but a much more significant thing, because it takes a lot more chutzpah, a lot more guts to go to you and do that. Any comment, Ari?
It is a challenge when you have offended someone. You might be embarrassed about it, you might be shy, and it can be difficult to do. But if you can bring yourself, if you can summon the strength to go face to face with that person and say, I beg your forgiveness, I need your help to feel better about this? How can I make amends? Then there's some healing that comes with that on both sides. They hear it from you, the sincerity, the integrity of showing up and putting yourself out there, and the willingness to try to forge a path together forward. I think it's healing for the person who needs the apology, and it's healing for the person who needs to offer the apology, and it's a path forward so that people can get on with their lives again.
Yeah, we Jews don't say God will understand. No, if I wronged you, I can't ask God for forgiveness. I have to ask you for forgiveness. That takes courage. It's very, very difficult to do. It's easy to say, oh, God will forgive me. No, it's not the way it works for we Jews. We have to go to the person, say we're sorry, and make amends.
There's a prayer.
Send you Omaha steaks. I got to make amends.
During the service of Yom Kippur, I'm not sure what I forget the name of the prayer that you have, but the rabbi will list 20 different kinds of sins you might have committed. What's that prayer? Do you remember where you say?
Al-Chet, I think it's called the Al-Chet Shechatanu, for the sins I have committed. There's even a tradition of beating your chest.
That's right.
You literally hit your chest with each one. I don't have the text in front of me, but you are correct.
And when I read the list, it's usually all encompassing. I could add a
There's
few in
something there for us.
I could add,
I've done something.
I think every UConn fan has got to apologize to me for the loss that Duke had in the tournament this last year, and I will accept your apologies for that loss. But let's go on from there.
There are several different versions of that prayer, and usually it is meant to be comprehensive, and often it's an acrostic. If you read Hebrew and you look at the first letter of each of the words, the first one will be with an aleph, the second one will be with a bet, and then a gimel, and then a dalet, and it'll work its way through the entire aleph bet typically.
Interesting, there's only 22 letters. You've only done 22 sins. I think most of us could do the alphabet times 10.
Yeah.
But you're correct, Ari. The prayer only has 22 verses for the 22 letters.
The fasting is interesting to me. You mentioned that earlier on. If you told me, Bob, let's fast, all three of us will fast today until tomorrow, 25 hours later, we could do it easily. But because it's under the pressure, this is me personally, that you're fasting, and by the way, you don't drink water, I don't drink anything. And anyone who's smart will not go near a Jewish synagogue while we're all fasting because you don't want to have anyone breathe on you. That's an old joke. I think Tina Fey has a great joke about that. But when you're fasting, it feels good. It feels good. Your stomach is growling. You're hungry. I may take a little nap, whatever. But it's a good feeling because it makes you think about what's really important. And so I enjoy that aspect of it. Luckily, I'm still able to fast. Rabbi?
It's meant to be purifying, and it purifies your body because you're slowly purging yourself of everything that's inside yourself, but it also purifies the soul. At first you're really, really hungry, and that's kind of all you can think about. And you get to a point where you're not really thinking about food anymore, and you're not obsessed with your desires and your cravings, but you can really focus on what the holiday's meant to be about, which is the introspective aspect of it.
The hardest part for me is I go to Mount Kisco Smokehouse for the lox, the best lox in the world. And the rabbi knows I do that. And I usually pick it up in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to drive. It's 35 minutes from my house to Mount
bet
Kisco.
It is.
And it's very hard to drive, whatever. But that last 15 minutes, you're hungry.
Oh, for sure.
Let's go to another thing. There's another part of the, and I want to make sure I save time for blowing the shofar. So I'll do one more thing, the Yizkor service. Talk about the Yizkor service, which happens as part of the Yom Kippur service.
The word Yizkor literally means to remember. And it's an opportunity, again, for community to come together and say the prayers for relatives, for the Jewish people. I know at my own temple, Bob, I also do a prayer for Jewish soldiers in Israel who passed away, who have died in Haganat HaMoledet, in defense of the homeland. But it's really an opportunity to come together. We've been talking about Debbie Friedman's Misha Berach. That is surely a prayer that is said. Another prayer is called the El Mole Rachamim, asking God, who is full of mercy, to have mercy upon the souls of those who have departed and to help us, the living. And then, of course, we say the Kaddish prayer. And again, I maintain very few Jews on earth that I know could translate the Kaddish. But the very recitation of those words, Yitkadal v'Yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, or an Ashkenazic pronunciation, Yiskadal v'Yiskadash Shemei Rabbah, touches the Jew in a way that the translation of the words cannot touch. There's something about the recitation of those words that's incredibly powerful.
Rabbi, anything more you want to add to that?
I think he said it so well.
You know, it's funny, in my bucket list, I have a couple things on my bucket list. One you're going to laugh at. I think you might laugh at this. One bucket list item is that I want to learn more about Hebrew. Even though I went to Hebrew school all the way through, and in my bar mitzvah in the good old days, we had 7 aliyahs, not 3 like they do nowadays. I had to learn 7 aliyahs, which is reading from the Torah without any vowels, which is very hard. But I could do more on that. And the other thing would be to learn how to tap dance. I now want to go to. We have one thing left to do. What is that? The shofar. And Ari, you're going to do the shofar. So why don't we do the prayer for the shofar, and then we'll explain afterwards what the shofar is and when is it blown.
Okay, so it's two people do it together. One person calls the different sound that's going to be sounded on the shofar, and then the other person sounds it. So
Go ahead.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechiyanu v'kimanu b'gianu lazman hazeh.
Amen.
Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, summoning us to hear the sound of the shofar. Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, giving us life, upholding the life within us, and bringing us to this moment. Tekiah Shavarim Teruah Tekiah Tekiah Shavarim Tekiah Tekiah Teruah Tekiah Gedolah Wow. Bravo.
Rabbi, when is that played? When is the shofar blown?
Pardon?
Well, it is sounded on Rosh Hashanah. It's also sounded on Yom Kippur. On Rosh Hashanah, we do the sort of longer version, an even more elongated version than that. And on Yom Kippur, it's one sound at the end of the service.
May you both be inscribed for a good year in the book of life.
Umevorach.
Shalom.
Mevorach.
This has been Babel Potzner with Rabbi Ari, Rabbi John Haddon. Shalom.
Never heard of